Hey guys, it's Jedi Lex, and welcome to the 25th episode of Beyond Tatooine, where I bring on different collectors to talk about how their love of Star Wars originated, as well as take a look at their collections. And on today's episode, I have Phil from the Yukon Phil channel. So, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing pretty good.
Good.
So, for
Good.
people who may not be following you, can you tell us a little bit about your channel, what you focus on, where people can find you at?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been on YouTube for a couple of years now. The channel's kind of changed here and there. When I first started out, I had this wild idea where I wear a cowboy hat, wear a mask, and I did a cowboy kind of voice. That didn't last too long. We kind of got rid of that. But my main focus on my channel is I do a live stream called Yakin with Yukon. um, here and there. It used to be every Sunday, but we had to change that to just periodically on Tuesday nights. So if you want to watch that, you can go back. There's a bunch from the last couple of years. You can go check that out. I don't know when more will be coming on, but hopefully soon. And then the channel really just focuses on Star Wars, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Masters of the Universe. Those are really my and the real Ghostbusters, the vintage line. Those are really the properties that I like the most, that I've always liked the most ever since I was a kid. So that's really the primary focus. I'm not really a comic guy. I'm not really into Marvel. I'm not really into DC. So if you're looking for that, the channel's probably not for you. It's more of a Star Wars and a Transformer type thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I talk about. Do some reviews, do some toy hunts. Uh, Kind of just pop up with a live stream every now and then, and just kind of keep it casual and just share my love of toys and Star Wars and collecting with the audience.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do a great job. I've been watching your content for a
Thank
while,
you.
so it's cool to actually have you on.
Thank you.
So that's awesome. Okay, so I guess what really like started your love of Star Wars?
Oh, I've loved Star Wars ever since I was 3 years old. One of my earliest memories is when I was three. So I'm an oldie. I'm 43 years old. So I was 3 years old when Return of the Jedi came out, and I remember going with my dad. And for some reason, I had never really been scared of anything Star Wars, but I freaked out over the Death Star. And he had a hell of a time with me. And it ended up where we had to leave and everything else. But since really my first memories, I've always loved Star Wars, always loved Darth Vader. I've always loved the stories, but mostly the characters, mostly the designs of everything. Darth Vader to me is number one, Boba Fett's up there, and the first three, I don't think anything will ever be better than the first three Star Wars. I think that's really the top. But yeah, for as long as I can remember, I've collected Star Wars, I've watched Star Wars, I've been enthralled with Star Wars, and it's just something that's really been part of life, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, I totally get it. I feel like Star Wars is ingrained in like my day to day now, so
absolutely, yeah,
but I wouldn't
absolutely,
have it any other way?
right,
So
right,
yeah.
exactly.
Okay, cool. So Darth Vader number 1, is that your favorite character?
Oh yeah, he's always been my favorite. It's funny that when I was three, I was scared of the Death Star, but I've never been afraid of Darth Vader. Darth Vader has always been just this really cool character that had some mystery behind him. He had a very we didn't really know the story from the beginning, but once you found out the whole story, he was even cooler. And now that they're kind of bringing him back with the Ahsoka and stuff, it just kind of it's given us everything I wanted to see from Darth Vader like 40 years later. So like in the Kenobi series, we saw Vader at like peak. That was great. I love that his brutality and the way he handles himself and the way he's on a mission and he's got like kind of that tunnel vision where it's like, okay, I don't care who I got to take out, I don't care what I got to do. This is the mission, and I'm going to make the mission happen no matter what. So it's a tragic story about Darth Vader, but I think that adds to the character. I think that makes it even more relatable, to where it's like, okay, I can kind of relate to how this guy, was deceived and went a certain way when he should have gone another way. I think that's a very relatable story to a lot of people. Plus, he looks cool. I mean, still 40, what are we, 40, almost 50 years later, still one of the coolest designs of any character ever to me. I just don't think you can beat that design. And the great thing about it, it stands the test of time. It's like they come up with stuff now, still not as cool as Vader. And
Nope.
I don't think they'll ever get anything as cool as Vader. So that's why he's the top. There's just so many reasons. I could probably go on forever. I won't, but I probably could go on forever why Vader is the number one for me.
Yeah, Vader is such a unique design, and I feel like his whole arc and, like, when they kind of expanded upon, like, getting to see Anakin, I feel like it really just added to his character, but I feel like
Absolutely.
even to this day, he has the most dynamic storyline, like, from going from Anakin, having all these things against him, then going to Vader, then coming back, but I used to be scared of Vader. When I watched the original trilogy and Luke took his mask off, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
this is"
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
I think a lot
no.
of people had that feeling where it's like he's taking off the mask. You're like, what the hell are we gonna see under this thing? Is he gonna be like, is he gonna look like Jason Voorhees? Is he gonna be totally normal? What? Because we didn't know about
Yeah.
Mustafar. We didn't know about the battle. We only heard about it through kind of like
Mhm.
the mythology of Star Wars. So that was kind of a thing, back when you were a little kid and you're like, I'm kind of scared of what's gonna be under that mask. What's it gonna look like? So I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely a little freaked out by it, but I still love I mean, I love Anakin more, but I feel like Anakin and Vader are almost they're intertwined. Like if you
Right.
like Anakin, you have to like Vader, vice versa. But I love the story. It's so dynamic. And I love seeing like Hayden more as Vader, like in the suit. I thought that was like so amazing in the Kenobi series. Yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it had its moments, but I really enjoyed the Kenobi series for that reason. Like that
Yeah.
made up for everything.
Yeah, I'm
100%.
totally with you. I think the best part to me was the final duel where the mask was split in half, and you
Oh
get
yeah.
the half Vader, you get the half Anakin, and that just kind of brings everything together. And
Yeah.
it's actually a really sad scene. You kind of feel the emotion. That's one point. Unfortunately, we've lost right now, I think, but that's one point in Star Wars where it's like that was a really well done emotional scene to where you see the tragedy and you see that his best friend is just completely distraught over what's happened to, you know, his best friend and the guy that he trained. And it's like that right there, that was a great scene. One of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars was that duel with Obi-Wan and Vader, and just it also showed that Vader is not like impenetrable. You can get at him, you can take him down, and then once you do, you just kind of see the human side. So
Yeah, it was definitely intense. I definitely kinda, like, choked up a little when he was
yeah,
like, "You didn't kill Anakin, I did," and I was like,
right,
"Whoa," and then having, like, the lights go back and forth when, like, Anakin's talking versus Vader, like, the blue and the
absolutely,
red. Yeah, it was a phenomenal scene. I think that scene, like, totally made the Kenobi series worth
absolutely.
watching.
I
Yeah,
completely agree with you on that. I totally
yeah,
agree. Yep.
such a good series. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the other series? Do you have a favorite series?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't like most of the series that Disney's done.
Yeah,
There's just personal things and stuff with it that I don't like. I don't think it's living up to what we've got in the past. And I get that it's different stuff, and I get this, but I don't have interest in some of the new stuff. I had interest in the Mandalorian, which I
okay.
think is done very well. I had interest in the Kenobi series, but that's been it. The rest, I just haven't had much interest in. Yeah, it's just not interesting to me. That's really the only reason I don't watch it. It just I kind of know how it's going to go, and it's like it just doesn't interest me. I'd rather go back and spend time watching the prequels or watching the original trilogy or watching Rogue One. Those to me had a lot more impact and were a lot more well done. These new series feel very rushed, and it seems like they didn't spend enough time in the writing room. It seems like they didn't spend enough time getting the proper acting and the proper actors that they needed to get. And it feels like it's just kind of, ever since Disney took over, other than a couple of things, it's like, let's just get something out there. It doesn't matter if it's good. It's got Star Wars on it. So let's just get it out there. So that's kind of my personal opinion with that. I'm not excited about much that's come out and that's going to come out, unfortunately. But yeah, yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm just not excited
Yeah.
about it. So,
No, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, I totally get it, but I know you're a Boba Fett fan, kind of, so
yes.
you didn't like the Boba Fett series?
That was okay. I found it very slow. It wasn't what we came to know about Boba Fett. Boba Fett, most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy, will do anything to get it. And he just kind of seemed like this beat up old guy that had like all these past issues. And I just was like, I didn't think it did a service to the way we knew Boba Fett. I appreciate the backstory. I appreciate showing how he got out of the Sarlacc pit and everything else, but it was just, it seemed like it took about 3 or 4 episodes to get going in an 8 episode series. And it's like, we don't really have that much time
Yeah.
for him to sit in the back of the tank and just dream and dream and dream every episode. It's like, we
Yep.
got to move on. So there was stuff in there that I didn't think was necessary, but there was some cool stuff in there too. Reintroducing Cad Bane. I don't think we're worried about spoilers here, are we? I'm
No.
probably
Nope.
okay to
Nope.
talk about it.
Yep.
Okay.
Talk about
Okay.
whatever.
I think Cad Bane was cool to bring him back in. To have the Mandalorian step in was cool, but it's like he almost needed to be the one to kind of save things. Where once he got in, once Din Djarin got back in, things got better. Things got more fast pace, and it's like, did that need to happen? Did we really need someone to bail out Boba Fett in that way? I didn't feel like that was necessary. So I know there's rumblings about having a season 2 of that. I will admit that I did watch every episode of the Book of Boba Fett, but there was probably 3 that were good for me. So again, I think the storytelling is just slow. I'm going to use the word boring. There's been a lot of boring stuff with Star Wars lately, in my opinion. Andor, I didn't really watch Andor, but I heard it's boring. And then the Book of Boba Fett and the Acolyte have all been kind of boring to me. So, I like action. I like seeing action, and I get storytelling, I get backstories, but man, give me some action in the middle of it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the thing.
Interesting. I felt like the Acolyte had a little bit of action. Like there was kind of some kind of like more, I don't know, like I feel like the sequence of fights and kind of like the choreograph has been better than what we've seen, but it wasn't enough action.
No,
Or what are your
I mean,
thoughts?
we're dealing with Jedi here. we should
Yeah.
have we should have a lot of action. I think the first scene, the choreography was different. Okay, so we're throwing like a
Mhm.
little more kung fu, karate,
Yeah.
jujitsu, whatever you want to call it, into that. So I thought that was cool that they did that. But the acting was just, for me, really, really killed it. Very monotone. Not a lot. Like we talked about emotion with
Mhm.
Vader in
Yeah.
the Kenobi series. I didn't feel any of that in the first 2 episodes of the Acolyte. I felt no emotion at all. I thought the acting was very just, it flatlined for me. And I'm like, are we gonna, are we upset about what's going on? Are we happy about what's going on? We didn't see a lot of that, eh, from what I saw. Interpretation's different from every person. But for me, I've been around Star Wars for 43 years and I've seen a lot of Star Wars, and
Yeah.
this is not feeling like Star Wars to me. It's feeling like something that's being rushed, and like I said before, we got to get something out, and you know I just want, do justice to it. There was a lot of people that complained about how George Lucas's writing was corny and cheesy. This isn't much better, with a lot of the way that they're doing the writing now. There's a lot of cheesy stuff, and I get that. That's fine. It's cool to do, you know humor to break up things, but we need. I think there's a lot more emotion that needs to happen with the performances and the story as a whole. So
Yeah, I definitely feel like, that's kind of a huge gripe that a lot of fans have with Star Wars is
yeah,
that they feel like a lot of people they're just pushing to
right,
push.
right,
And like we love Star Wars, we'll take any Star Wars that we can get kind of thing, but we would prefer quality over quantity. And I feel like
exactly.
they're kind of just pushing the agenda and trying to get shows out there.
Yes,
Granted, I've been a fan of most of the shows. There are, of course, moments in some of them that I'm like, I don't really know that that needed to happen. Like, this could have maybe been like a 4 series episode, like kind of like Book of Boba Fett.
yeah,
We spent a lot of time with the Tusken Raiders, which I didn't mind. We got to kind of see more of their story and stuff like that. But it did it need to be 4 episodes? Kind of.
yeah,
I don't
exactly,
think so. So I mean,
exactly.
there's definitely some things that I feel like they could do better. I have been a fan of the shows that they've been coming out with. I think some of the new ideas are interesting, like Skeleton Crew. I feel like that's kind of interesting, but I do like the fact that like at least with Acolyte, we're kind of exploring a new time period.
Right,
So I feel like
and
that's
that's
kind of
good.
a plus. Yeah.
It is good that they're bringing that in, but I know that, I think the other problem I got with Disney too, there's not. It kind of reminds me of Hasbro. You've seen my stuff, my opinions on Hasbro, so I won't go into that. But The thing is, when you do shows or you have a business, your customers and your fan base kind of make it go round. They either can make it or they can break it. And when you
Yeah.
refuse to listen to the customers and the opinion of the customers or the viewer, it's just kind of, it's distressing. It's like, well, we've been clamoring for, say, Knights of the Old Republic. A lot of people have been
Yes.
clamoring for something like that for a long time. It's not happening. And we instead we get a series about Ray, who I know a lot of people like Ray, and that's fine, but that's not the the what people want to see. I don't think that everyone's out to say I want another 3 movies or 1 movie or whatever their plan is about Ray. I think there's much more interest in going even further back in time, going to the Knights of the Old Republic, seeing Revan, Malik, guys like that, guys that we all
Yeah.
have figures of, that we've known through video games and through comics and through, even Black Series figures. We want to see that in action. It's kind of like what we saw with Anakin in the Ahsoka series. That was well done. That was really good, to where they started to connect something. But that's Dave Filoni for you. You
Yes.
connect the dots there, and boy, just that one episode was the best. That's the only episode I've watched of Ahsoka, because I'm like, well, that was kind of the top. I don't think we're going to do any better than that. So, I just think that if Disney would focus more on paying attention to what the people want, they wouldn't get quite so much hate that they get. And I know the Star Wars fan base can be toxic. I've been toxic in my life. I understand that, but you know, I think people get fed up. I think they get fed up with having the same stuff and the same thing, and it's like, we're asking you for this. Why can't you make it happen? Why are you so bent on doing what you want, but you don't listen to what we want? So I think that's where the frustration comes in. I know that's where the frustration comes in for me. Star Wars is a huge universe. There's a lot of things you can do. And to be narrow minded with your storytelling, I think just does Star Wars a disservice. So I hope in the future, with Filoni taking over, that happens more, that we get more live action Clone Wars, we get more, you know, more of the characters, more the expanded universe characters that we've all been wanting. I hope that happens, and I hope the storytelling gets a little better as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's like a huge gripe that a lot of people have as well. Not only trying to just like push shows out, but not pushing the shows that people want. And I
Right.
feel like that's become my problem, especially with like Funko per se. Like I collect Funko. I feel like they don't listen. Like there are so many people that write reviews and do this. Like there's such a huge fan base that are looking for things that we're just not getting, and we're getting the
Right.
same thing over and over, just maybe in a different color or a different, like slightly different mold. I feel like it would go over well if you kind of just listen to what certain collectors would want. You'd probably sell them too. So I feel like it's
Absolutely.
kind of tough. Hasbro, I know Hasbro does that. They kind of just, slap a new paint job on the same action figure and then ship it out. But I feel like Disney would be probably a little bit more successful, and we wouldn't have such a fandom menace if they did listen to people. Because I think having Knights of the Old Republic is something that a lot of people want. I would love to
Absolutely.
see that. Like,
Absolutely.
I think that would be phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it, like you said before, it kind of trickles downstream to where, you like you said with Hasbro, the repaints. I recently got out of Black Series for that reason. When
Yep.
you increase prices and you continue to do the same thing over and over and over, I think we have one character from the Mos Eisley, maybe one, anywhere from 1 to 5 characters, and it's like, well, that's a huge thing. The canteen is a
Yep.
huge thing. We've got all these holes in our collections in Jabba's palace, and again, it's more cost effective for a company to take an existing mold and repaint it 100 times than it is to come with a new mold and do all that PR and do all that stuff that goes with it, the marketing, than it is to just repaint something. So I get it. I get it's a business decision, but the problem is you're having people walk away. And when you have people walk away, that's not really helping anybody. It's not helping the fan base. It's not helping the company. And then it creates conversations like this where Yukon Phil sits here and talks about why he hates Black Series every single time he's on a live stream. So, I think it's just something where there used to be listening and now there's not. And when you get old like me, you're like, why can't things be the way they used to be? And it's hard to get over stuff like that.
Yeah, yep, I totally get it. It definitely gets tough. I mean, even like as a young collector, like I mean, I only collected a couple of years now, but I've started to just notice the trends and I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know that I really need to collect as much of this
Right.
anymore. Like you're kind of just giving me the same stuff over and over and it makes me kind of look at other companies and I'm like, well, I really like what they're doing.
Yes.
And then you kind of start to notice that they're all kind of just doing the same thing. They're all just putting out the same stuff just over and over in a different, like very minor edited format. So I don't know. I feel like the collecting game, it's getting a little tough. Everything's trying to be cost effective, but you're
Oh,
not really
definitely.
giving us what we're asking for.
Definitely. And I've looked in my collection, and I'm like, I really examined it. So I just redid, and I know you'll show the pictures later, but
Mhm,
I just redid my collection, and I really had to have kind of a heart to heart with myself. It's like, what really means a lot to me? What do I really want my collection to be? Do I want it to be this way for me, or do I want it to be this way for somebody else? Everybody on YouTube. And I'm like, man, I want to be for me. I'm the one fronting the bill. I'm the one paying for this stuff.
mhm.
So I really had to do kind of a self evaluation on the collection and be like, okay, what means a lot to me and where can I get it and how do I want to display it? Well, when I was a kid in the 80s. So vintage toys are a huge thing now. You guys can see the turtles in the back. A lot of vintage stuff that I'm after now. And then also, there's so many other ways you can go than mainstream toys. There's a company called YOLO Park with their Transformers. They don't actually transform, but you can get a model about 8 inches tall for $35. I mean, it's museum quality compared to getting something from Hasbro for more
Mhm.
that is not as good. So I think as a collector, you got to kind of adjust to where it's going and look for alternatives because there are alternatives out there if you want to take the time to look at it. The mainstream is the mainstream, but there's a lot of good companies out there that are private that are doing really good work out there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I had to do the same thing. I kind of was looking at my collection and I was like, man, like I've got a lot of shit that I just bought to buy. Like I
Right,
really
right.
need to evaluate, like, I'm running out of space. Like, what are the things that I want in my collection? What really speaks to me still? And I've totally had to do kind of like pull some stuff out and kind of sell off some stuff because I'm like, I don't know, this stuff doesn't really speak to me anymore. So I feel like, as a collector, you kind of go through a phase where you just try to collect everything possible and then you realize, well, I want my collection to look a certain way. I want it to be for me. Like I don't want to just collect to collect kind of thing. So I
Exactly.
feel like every collector kind of hits a wall at some point and you got to reevaluate.
Definitely. And the other thing is, so I'm huge on nostalgia. If it doesn't mean anything to you, it can go. All
Yeah.
these, maybe not all of them, but the majority, the genres that I collect, the properties that I collect, they all have a special meaning to me from when I was a kid. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it took a while to kind of hammer that down, but now it's like when I pick up a figure and I kind of get that feeling that I had when I was a kid, I know I'm doing the right thing. If I pick up a figure and it means nothing, it can go. I can sell it, or I can, I recently had a garage sale where I sold off a bunch of stuff because it just had no meaning anymore. And it's like, okay, totally fine with that. And if you don't have any remorse from that, you know that that was not something that really meant a lot to you. So, when it comes to collecting, I think it's an emotional based thing too, where it's like, what does this mean to you? Are you just buying stuff to buy, or are you buying stuff because it has a meaning to you? I have two kids. My daughter's 9 and my son's 6, and they've really gotten into this too. They see it, and it's like when I can pass something on to them, and I see the light in their eyes, that the light that I used to have in my eyes, it's like, oh man, well that's totally worth it. And I know that that's kind of the right thing to be doing and the right focus where the collection needs to be.
Okay. Cool. I love that. And I guess my last question for you before we take a look at your collection is what is your favorite movie?
Star Wars or just in general?
Hmm. I guess we can do Star Wars.
So it's Empire. That's a
Empire.
no-brainer.
Okay.
It's Empire. Empire is just it's just one of those things where it kind of has everything you're looking for. Vader's maybe not quite peak, but very close to peak. Vader's
Mhm.
ruthless. Great job. Luke, we kind of see through the training. I mean, the Hoth battle is my favorite battle of all time. It doesn't get much better than the Hoth battle for me. I think that's just so well done, and we were so used to seeing like space battles and that sort of thing, and to incorporate the white of the snow and have that as the background with these red lasers going off and these gigantic skyscraper walkers going through. I mean,
Yeah.
that's art to me. So, and then it kind of leaves you hanging. It leaves you hanging on what's going to happen. What's going to happen with Han Solo? What's going to happen with Luke? What's going to happen with Vader? And all these things. So I think it's really just the best, the most well done piece of Star Wars media out there ever. I'm talking TV shows, I'm talking comic books, I'm talking everything. I think Empire is just the peak, and I don't think they're going to beat it. I don't think that'll ever happen. So it's one of the few times in cinematic history where we can say the sequel is better than the original, or the sequel's better than anything. That doesn't happen very often. Usually a sequel is, you know, this did good, it made money, let's make more money. And that's what I love about Star Wars, is that it was brought in as a trilogy. So you knew
Yep.
that no matter how well the original did, you were going to get a second and you were going to get a third. And I think that's the way that story writing needs to be now, and not just, okay, this did good, let's do 30 more of them and see how it goes. Try to make as much money as possible. So unfortunately, I think that cinema in general has been corrupted by that, to where it's like it's not really about the storytelling, it's more about the money. And I think a lot of creative people are being held down for that, because studios aren't willing to take a chance on
Yep.
something that might be new and original. We can't do that. Let's make a Marvel movie. Let's make another Marvel movie. We know that's going to do good. So that's the unfortunate thing with this day and age, I think.
Yeah, it is tough, but I think that's the one thing that, at least to me, the sequels and the prequels had that the sequels didn't, is that
Right.
there was like an underlying like plot to all three of them. Like you're building up to this point, which in the sequels I didn't feel like we really had. Like, in the prequels we have the chosen one, in the OT we have, he's got to fight Vader. Like that's got to happen. Luke is going
Right.
to face his dad. The sequels, I felt like we didn't have that really defining point, that kind of thread that kept all three of them together. So I feel like that's where I really struggled with the sequels, is the story writing was just all over the place. And if you had a definitive line that just kind of made sense and was explained and like carried out through the three movies, they would have been better,
Yeah.
possibly, you know?
I mean, when you have three different visions for three different movies, that's not going to flow
Yeah.
well. And that's exactly what they had. I would take, if I had to pick one of the three, I'd say Force Awakens is probably the best. But it was kind of a combobulated mess, to where it's like, okay, we bought this gigantic property. We have one of the biggest properties out there. We got to get something out to start making some more money back. And I don't think, once again, that the story was thought out properly, and we needed to have that story be a whole, not have somebody come in to change things up completely and another person in to change things up. It needed to be the way it was in the original trilogy and even the prequels. And I'm with you. I think the sequel trilogy was a step back for sure. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that because it was
Yep.
definitely it was a jumble. I mean, yeah, we'll let it rest,
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, you did send me some pictures of your collection,
Yeah, yeah.
so walk me through it.
So these are all my Titan transformers. These things are anywhere from 18 inches to 24 inches tall. They sit above my TV. So the way my room works, it's a big room I share with my kids. I have kind of an
Mm.
L that goes around. So I'm at the end of the L. And I have an entertainment center that has a big TV, and these guys actually stand over the top. So again, I'm a huge Transformer guy. I have pretty much every Transformer that's out now, as far as the new stuff. Excuse me, as far as the new stuff goes. And these guys take up a lot of room. They're heavy. Like the guy with the orange and the green Scorponok, he weighs about 15, 20 pounds. He's a
Oh,
heavy,
wow.
beefy guy. So these are ones that I never got when I was a kid. So that's kind of why we have them. And then the Vader is a Kodabakaya Chrome Special Edition Vader that I've had for a long time. I think I've had that for almost 10 years. I have no idea what it's worth. There's not a lot of them out. But I love that piece. I always use Vader as kind of the centerpiece in a lot of things, so that's kind of why he's there. But I love my giant transformers, so
Yeah, those things are cool. I didn't realize that they weighed that much. That's
they're
like
heavy. Yeah,
intense.
yeah,
Do
they're
those
heavy.
actually transform
They
though?
do. Yes, they
Okay.
do. So, don't ask me how, because I'm absolutely terrible at transforming my transformers. But yeah, they all are transformable. They're all anywhere from, the going prices on some of these now is astronomical. The
Yeah.
guy with the yellow Omega Supreme, the yellow and the red, I think he's pushing like $500 now. They get really expensive. The
Yeah.
good thing about a lot of transformers is they hold their value. So that's another good reason, another good thing why I collect them in case I ever need the money. So
Yeah. No, I get it. Yep. Sometimes you got to use your collection to fund life or
right,
to fund your
right.
collection. So, yep, I totally get it. But yeah, those things are sick. Are you more of a fan of when they are like the actual transformer versus the automobile?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's always been a dream of mine to have the transformer as a robot, then have the alt mode, the vehicle mode with
Mhm.
them. But that means I have to double my collection, and I don't have the funds or the space for that.
Yeah.
So I prefer them in the robot mode. And
Okay.
also, like I said, I'm terrible at transforming them. So the
Yeah.
robot design is really what got me on these guys. It's just such a cool design. You know, I love G1 Transformers, one of my probably my favorite cartoon ever.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, those things are sick and they look enormous. So, yeah, those are pretty dope.
So this is also more Transformers. I have close to 300 Transformers, so there's a lot. I recently redid this spot. This is kind of the corner, which is kind of down the way from me. So I added a corner shelf. Kind of the first three rows of the corner shelf is all Transformers, and then the ladder shelf is all Transformers with a couple of Star Wars mixed in. The other shelf's a lot of Transformers, and then I mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of the vintage real Ghostbusters, so I'm working on getting those. Not an easy task to get anything that looks good. A lot of beat up real Ghostbusters are out there, but I love that line too. Another line that I had as a kid, and just love the firehouse is great. The all the ghosts are great. The Ghostbusters themselves are great. So that's kind of one of my projects now is to try to get close to completing that line. But again, it's very pricey, very difficult to find anything in good shape. Fortunately, I have a couple of toy shops around me where I've been able to get a lot of it. But again, it's getting to the point where the eBay prices are crazy, and I'm like, oh boy, it's going to be tough. And then we also have some Star Wars, a lot of vintage collection, a lot of 3 3/4. I went back to 3 3/4 inch Star Wars recently, and um, it's been okay. The prices are just so bad with vintage collection that we're trying to have kind of having to piece together everything. So, but yeah, that's kind of the new section of the toy loft right now.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you got quite a variety there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I get it too. Especially trying to collect like some of the older pieces. Like one, it's very hard to find them in good condition, and then two, when you do find one in good condition, it just kind of throws the price through the roof.
Oh, absolutely.
It's tough, man.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult. You have to know what you're getting into when you
Yeah.
go into some of these lines. Real Ghostbusters. There's a lot of expensive pieces, and you have to kind of say to yourself, okay, what do I actually which ones mean the most to me? Which ones it's kind of what we talked about before. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. What meant the most to you? Which ones did you have as a kid? Which ones did you never have when you were a kid that you want to get? And that's kind of my thinking and my perception on the whole thing. So
Yeah, that's kind of been my thing is, I wanted all these things as a kid and now I've got adult money so I
right,
can go
right,
and
right,
get all these
right.
things that I really wanted as a kid. But I know a lot of like collectors, they try to collect things that they had when they were a kid. So they
Yes.
try to go and find like, oh, I had this set, like I remembered it, like I want it back. So I think a lot of us really wish that we held on to a lot of the stuff that we had and didn't
Oh
get rid
man.
of it because I feel like that's always our thing is we have them when we're kids, we get rid of them because we get too cool for them, and then as adults we kind of come back and we're like, man, I really wish I saved some of that stuff.
That's one thing I preach to my kids is take care of your toys. Me and my
Yeah.
brother were brutal to our toys. I remember there was one time I had a bunch of Masters figures. I wrapped a bunch of those old caps,
Yeah.
the caps from the cap guns, wrapped a bunch around of those, created a fuse, and just blew them to hell. And it's like, I wish I had those. I wish I had those back because you didn't realize at the time how much it meant to you and how much it actually stuck with you. So that's one
Mhm.
thing I preach to my kids is, guys, take care of your toys. You're going to want to have these for a while. So one thing I wish I had done.
Yeah. I Yep, I totally get it. Yeah, it's tough. Um,
So there's kind of a picture of the entertainment center as a whole, where we got Ghostbusters on one side, and then the Ninja Turtles are on the other side. I was able to acquire the Super Layer playset, which I know a lot of people like. Got that on Black Friday. Got a good deal on that. I did pre-order the Technodrome, so I hope to get that soon. Got a lot of vintage on there, and some modern, some NECA, some Super 7 Playmates. One good thing that Playmates has done is they've reissued a lot of the vintage turtles multiple times. So you can go back, you don't have to pay the astronomical prices, and you can kind of get everything you had as you were a kid. So that's one good thing that Playmates has done with the turtles. And then the Star Wars, again, that's mostly vintage collection. There's some Power of the Force and a few things like that. But again, very pricey for vintage collections, so you really got to watch it. And then kind of flanking the TV is two lightsabers that I found through all the Ross deals. We've got the Ray lightsaber and the Leia Organa saber. The Ray was $60, the Leia was 40. So I was one of the lucky ones that was able to find both of those, and really well done sabers. I think those are good sabers. Are they worth the 275 retail? Absolutely not. But I'll definitely pay $60 and $40 for a pretty solid lightsaber, um, especially at Ross. So yeah, I think they did good on those.
Yeah, I saw people started posting them, and I was like, "Man, I think I went to, like, 5 different Rosses, and after the 5th one, I didn't find anything," and I was like, "Yep, I'm done, I'm over it." So,
Yeah, yeah,
they're would I pay full price for those sabers? No, I'd totally rather buy from, like, a third-party company and get, like, a NeoPixel or something of that
right,
nature,
right,
because I feel like the for what you're paying, you get so much more from these other companies, like sounds, lights, like, Flash on Clash. These, I feel like it's kinda just for looks, like, it just has
absolutely.
one color and stuff, so $50, $40, not bad, but if I can't find them at Ross, I don't think I'm buying them.
I totally agree with you. And the good thing about those other saber companies, they're cheaper. And, it's like, I'm not sure why Hasbro's got these at such a high price, but
Yeah.
I've seen Tony from Star Wars Sith. He's got a lot of those. He did a
Mhm.
review on the Shin Hati and the Balin Skull ones, and those things look amazing. They look absolutely beautiful. And if I had more room, I'd get a lot of those because I think they're really well done, and they're popping them out so much faster than Hasbro is. And if I was into cosplay and that sort of thing, I would definitely be looking in that avenue because they do a good job. They kind of understand what the fans are looking for. Their market is marketing to something that's not really out. We haven't, no one said anything else about a Balin Skull lightsaber, which is a really cool saber, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I think that's the way to go. But like I'm sure you have too. Limited room limits what you can buy. So
Yep, yep, I think space is really the ultimate collector's,
definitely,
kryptonite, unfortunately.
definitely.
It's tough. And then
And
this
then this was kind of a little. This is a battle a la Yukon Phil, I suppose we call it. So, I wanted to get the Legacy AT-AT. Little did I know that thing is about $500 now. So I'm
yeah,
like, okay, we can't quite do that. So I got the Rogue One AT-ACT. Just kind of created a little battle here, a little battle. I made it myself. My son helped me with it, and then that's kind of all we did. I took the funds from selling the Black Series and bought a bunch of stuff. So that's kind of a little battle between Empire, Rebels, and yeah, I like it. That was one of the main reasons I got out of Black Series, got back into 3 3/4 inches. The vehicles, that's another great part of Star Wars
yep,
is the vehicles. I talked about the walkers from Empire earlier, and that's probably my favorite vehicle. Any walker, I love all the walkers. So the ground attack battles is really when I sold my Black Series, I'm like, okay, this has to be priority one to where we can have a battle like this because back in 1996 when Power of the Force came out, I was all in, and I had battles like this in my old house throughout the entire basement. So that's one thing that I really missed in my collection, and happy to have it. I think it looks okay. It's obviously I'm not a diorama person. I'm not a customizer person, so this is just kind of utilizing the space that I have. Also got the skiff, which is great. That's the vintage collection skiff up there. Great vehicle. Some of the speeder bikes that I got on clearance from Amazon, well done as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, but we'll see. It'll probably change eventually. So
I mean, I think it looks great, but I think that's also like the plus of collecting is you can change how you display it. And you can
right,
change the dioramas, you can change what you want to have out in front and center and what you want to kind of put in the back. And that's one thing that I love about collecting is you can change up how your collection looks and what you
absolutely,
kind of want to do with it. So
absolutely, yep. And then this is kind of a look at where I'm at. So Boba Fett helmet. I've had that for a long time. Great helmet. That's the Black Series one. I've got a couple of statues. Got the Mandalorian, Malgus, and then that's the hyper real Vader on top. A few Black Series that I've acquired through Ross or through clearances,
yep.
and then some of the Micro Galaxy Squadron vehicles as well. So
Nice.
yeah, just a little mishmash of Star Wars again. Uh, if it's on clearance for Black Series, I'll probably go for it. But yeah, again, I want representation of the vehicles, of the characters, some of the cosplay stuff. I think all that's the good stuff for me. I don't need to have everything, but the stuff that really means a lot, that's kind of where we go with it. So again, I'm pretty happy with the way it is now. And we'll see how long that lasts for. So
Yeah, yeah, no, I think Ross, the deals are
right.
kind of like crazy, and I feel like it's almost kind of changing the collecting game a little bit because you're almost like, well, if I wait, it'll end up at Ross for like not even like maybe 1/4 of the price, not even.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's definitely tough. I know a lot of people are not like racing to go purchase things now. Like I don't have to be there on opening day because I know if I wait, it'll go on clearance or at some point, maybe a few months down the road, it'll end up at Ross. But I mean, some of the guys have been like, if it's 4.99 at Ross, it's
Oh
for
yeah.
me. And I was like,
Absolutely.
you know what? I'm kind of with that. I like
Well,
that.
and the good thing is it for me, and I think for a lot of other collectors, I was talking to Tony about this. I keep reading up Tony. Tony's great.
Yeah. Tony's amazing.
But we both have the same idea where it's like, okay, another thing that we don't really consider as collectors is patience. We're all about the FOMO. We're all about the fear of missing out. We're all about, oh my God, if I don't get this, if I don't pre-order this, I'm going to miss out. I'll never be able to get it. I have to pay all this money in the aftermarket. Ross has taught us the exact opposite. Everybody's finding the vintage collection hunter, which everybody was after 6 months ago and paying crazy prices for. Now it's $3.99 at Ross if you can find it. And it's like, okay, do we really need to give in to some of these astronomical prices, or can we have the patience to wait and find things on Amazon later, at Ross
Mhm.
later? I mean, Walmart just had a massive clearance too. I found probably 20 black chrysanthemums for anywhere from $13 to $17. That was a $35 figure.
Yep.
I mean, So, and I'll admit, the first time I got black chrysanthemum, I saw it, I was like, pre-order, paid $35 for it, sold it, found it again for 13. Okay, we'll take it. But you know, everything's expensive nowadays. Try to save yourself some money where you can to get the stuff that you want, because if not, you're paying a lot of money. And then I can't tell you how many times I've been really excited about getting the figure, whether it be Star Wars, Transformers, whatever it is. I get it out. I'm like, I pre-ordered and waited for this for 6 months and this thing sucks. What am I doing? So now it's like, okay, I'm going to be a lot more happy if I paid 10 or 15 as opposed to paying 25 or 30 for a figure that's okay. You're going to have those ones where it blows you out of the water, and I'm okay paying retail with this, but for the most part, I don't pay retail for very many things. It's very few and far between where I'm like, okay, do I need it that bad? 97% of the time, the answer is no. So that's the mentality.
Yeah, and it's like it's definitely like a game. You kind of got to figure out, is this going to sell out? Is this going to end up
Right.
at Ross?
Right.
And kind of having that, mentality. I mean, obviously, if it's something that you really want, go ahead and get it. But
Sure.
most of the time, especially something that I've learned that I did not have when I like first got into like collecting was patience. I
Mm,
would just was like, I gotta buy everything like right when it came out, and I've realized most of the time, if you just wait, you will find it for a better price. Like
absolutely.
whether it's a month down the road, a couple months down the road, maybe even a few days later, it might come up and be so much cheaper. So patience is definitely a big part of collecting.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And if you want the things you're gonna get, if you want the things you want to get, then to
Mhm.
each his own. But I'm telling you, there is a lot of ways to save some money on a lot of the stuff. I was talking about this on one of my lives a few months back, where you'll get a figure come in stock on Amazon. It'll be
Yeah,
if it's Black Series 25. In my experience, I've seen it a month or two later. It's already down to 20. We're back down to where it was. So it's like, okay. Then you question inside yourself, like, well, I didn't really need it that bad. If I'm willing to wait for a better price, I don't need it as bad as I thought I did when I pre-ordered it. That's kind of the thing that a lot of companies like to do is say, "Oh, well, here's this new flashy thing. You need it." And you need to look inside yourself. It's like, do I really need it that bad?
yeah,
So
yeah. It's tough. The collecting game is tough these days. And then
definitely.
these are the last few images that you sent me.
Yeah, just more kind of images about through it. Oh, there was one little section of Transformers there. So I mentioned the YOLO Park Transformers.
Mhm.
These are model kits. They kind of get away with calling them model kits, which they are. You can put them together, but you'll see the G1 Optimus Prime, the G1 Megatron. Those actually have die cast in them. They're $60 a
Well,
piece. They're about 8 inches tall. They're phenomenal. I mean, everything that I wanted from a figure when I was a kid for Optimus Prime for Megatron is in those figures. They look absolutely amazing. You do have to put them together. It's not hard. I mean, my kids can do it. So if you're looking at Transformers and you're okay with them not actually transforming, you just like the designs, I really recommend YOLO Park because you're going to get a lot for your money. $60 is not that bad for getting something that's really, masterpiece kind of quality
yeah,
is what we're talking here. So really well done. A lot of accessories. You're not getting just one. You're getting multiple accessories. You can have multiple looks for them. They even light up. So that's cool too,
yeah,
where you can light up the eyes for both Optimus Prime for Megatron. Both of their weapons light up. So I mean, you're getting a ton, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, where it's like, examine the market, examine if there's any other company out there that is doing something that you are interested in, that where you're going to get a lot more value because they're out there. And again, quality over quantity, and just do your homework, do your research, because I would have never known about this if it wasn't for some other YouTubers that I follow. And thank you to them for turning me on to this because it's really been good, and I really enjoy the line. So
yeah. I mean, I totally get that too. I know there's like a bunch of big name, like mainstream collectible companies. You got Hasbro, Funko, Loungefly, Black Series, whatever it is. But there are other companies out there. Most of the time, they are going to be better quality for the most
definitely,
part. Better quality for much better price. So yes, you kind of got to take the chance and find out which companies are really worth it. And most of the time, I feel like you can go on YouTube and the internet and look it up, but I almost kind of feel like sometimes these like smaller name companies are a lot better than these bigger name companies. So
definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
I don't know.
They well, I think they pay more attention to not only what the people want, but the quality aspect of it. I
Yeah.
think I've talked to Dre from the Collector Safe Space a lot, and he's really into like the Mayfix Star Wars, and it's like by the time you buy 5 Bo-Katans for every version that's been in the movie from Black Series, you could have bought
Mhm.
this one Mayfix that supplies everything, and you're getting better quality, you're getting better likeness, and you're kind of supporting a company that listens to you a little more and is more interested in what the customer wants. So you know
Yeah.
there's other ways, other avenues.
There is. Yep, there totally is. Yeah, I can't with the Bo-Katans because I feel like I collect Funko kind of mainly, and there's so many
Yeah,
Funkos
yeah,
of Bo-Katan. There's so many Grogus, and don't get me wrong, I love Grogu, I love Bo-Katan, but do I need 8 different Bo-Katans and
right,
15 different Grogus, one with
right.
him eating a frog, one of him eating a cookie, one of him holding a ball, one of him doing that, like,
It's
it
true.
kills me when they do stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, then you question. It's like you look at it a few months later, like, why did I buy this? Who
Yep.
cares if he's got a frog in his mouth? Why did I buy this?
Yeah. Yep, it gets to me. It totally gets me. Okay, so those were all the pics that you sent me of your collection, and I guess my final 2 questions. I'll start with my second to last one. Is what is your favorite piece in your collection?
Oh, most people will have a hard time with this. I can't get it
Yeah.
right now, but if you've watched my channel, you
Mhm.
know I've gone on about this for the last year. So I have a inbox. The box has been opened, but it's inbox
Mhm.
G1 Megatron, and this. Okay, so it's repeat, but that's okay. This is a figure that it's been my grail for really my entire life. When I was a kid, I never got it. I don't know why. I don't think it was because of the gun mode or anything. I think my parents just never found it for me. He was one of the hardest ones to find. And I remember I had a friend who had him and I traded. I traded a couple of my Transformers for it. Well, his mom threw an absolute fit about it. She's like, I paid all this money for this. You're not trading. You go there. And she called my mom and I got in trouble. And that was one time I held this figure in my hand and I was like, wow, I've never got it. So, for my birthday last year, me and my family went down to Dallas Vintage Toys where they had one.
Okay.
And I showed it to my wife and she's like, how much is it? I was like, well, it's a lot. She's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not happening. So my parents actually saw that video
Mhm.
and they were kind and generous enough to actually buy that for me and send it to me for my birthday, which was an amazing gesture, an amazing thing. And yeah, it's in a case. Nobody touches it. The kids have asked to play for it. It's not happening, but that is
Cool.
not only is it the my grail, but it's such a meaningful piece. Knowing where it came from, knowing that my parents did that for me, and that was a really special gift. And yeah, that really was the ultimate grail. So that will always be my favorite piece. It's the one piece in my collection that's not saleable. I will never sell that piece. I'll pass it probably down to my kids after I die or something like that because it's got too much meaning behind it from
Yeah.
not only where it came from, but the memories I had when I was a kid of never being able to get it and finally getting it as an adult. So that was an easy question. Really easy
Cool,
question.
yeah. A lot of people struggle with that question. They're like, "Oh, man,
Yeah,
like, I've got so much stuff," but, yeah, I mean, it always is, I feel like, the item that really has, like, such a meaning to the person, whether it's, like, a memory or, like, how they came to get it. There's always, like that's what their favorite item is,
right,
so that is
right.
pretty cool. And then
Yeah.
my last question is, as this is a collecting podcast and you are an experienced collector, what is, the best piece of advice that you could provide for other collectors out there?
So we've kind of talked about it. I think I've touched on most points, but I'll kind of wrap it all on a big bow for you. First of all, stay true to yourself. Stay in your lane. What do you like to collect? And stick with that. One thing, especially in YouTube, that a lot of people do is they will get out of their lane and they'll start collecting a lot of stuff to get views, to get likes, to get subs.
Mhm.
Don't do that. Stay true to yourself, and the people that are interested in you and your content will watch. I don't expect to have a lot of Marvel or DC people watching my content because I don't have Marvel and DC and I don't do that.
Yeah.
So, first thing would be stay true to yourself. Second, budget. My gosh, budget. This is so addicting. Once you get going, if you're a new collector, you can get in deep really fast. And once you get in deep, good luck getting out because we don't collect this stuff to resell and to make money because that's not going to happen. You once you buy something and you try to resell it, you're lucky if you get half of what you paid for it. So really get yourself a budget, narrow that down, say, okay, I'm going to spend $100 a week on toys, collectibles, whatever it is, and stick to it. Because if you don't, you're going to get yourself in a really bad way. And you're going to be sitting here looking at this and have to eat ramen for dinner every single night. Nobody
Yep.
wants to do that. So that would be the number two piece of advice. Number three, this kind of goes with budget, but don't go above your means. If you have a space, stick with that space. Don't continue to expand because when you continue to expand your space, that gives in your mind a trigger that says, okay, I can buy more now. I can fill up this space. I have all the space. I need to trigger it. So give yourself a space to where it's like, you know, this is where I need to stay and I need to be. And then the last one would be the FOMO. Don't worry about missing out. This is not about who gets the most, who has the
Mhm.
most impressive collection. It's about what you like and what you enjoy. But remember, this is just collecting. It's a small part of life. There's so many more things in life that are more important than this. Don't let it run you. Don't become obsessive because it's like smoking, it's like drinking. It can be a huge addiction to where all the things around you are now not as important as your collection. So really focus on that, really be mindful of what you're doing, what you're buying, how you're spending your money, how you're spending your time with this stuff. And I have the same exact things for anybody on YouTube. Be careful. I've had to take, Lex, I don't know if you have to, but I've had to take numerous breaks from YouTube due to the amount of addictiveness and obsessiveness that it takes. So just
Yeah.
be careful, guys. Be careful and set rules for yourself. That's really the number one thing.
Yeah, I've definitely, I started this because it was something that I enjoyed. I wanted like an outlet. I enjoyed doing it. It was kind of like just unrelated to anything else that's going on in my day to day. And there have been points where I really kind of have to like take a step back and be like, you know what, you're really pushing yourself. You're going to burn out. Like,
Right.
you're not even enjoying what you're doing anymore. And the
Right.
whole reason we started doing this is to enjoy it and to have an outlet and kind of just talk with other people who love Star Wars just as much as you do and to share your
Right.
collection with the world. So there have been points where I really have to kind of evaluate and step back and be like, you know what? I don't need to post a video every day. I just want to post the content that I like posting, and people will come and watch if they enjoy what I post. So,
Right.
you definitely have to kind of do it for yourself and really do it for
Yes.
the reason that you started it. If you started it to gain subs and to make money, then do that. If you started it just to kind of have an outlet like I did, then stay true to that. You just gotta, kind of just not burn yourself out. It shouldn't feel like a second job.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's all for fun. And what you said's perfect. If you get burned out, take a break.
Yeah.
Stay away for a while. A lot of people a lot of people out there think that if you don't watch their stuff, you're not supporting, or if you don't like their stuff, you're not supporting. That's completely untrue. I have many people that I know that I will admit I don't watch their stuff very often because I'm busy. I got a 9 to 5. I've got kids. We all have stuff, and
Yeah.
we don't all have time to watch everything. But that doesn't mean that you don't have my support. The people that have my support, they know who they are, and that will always be that way. So don't ever think that you have to, sacrifice your job or sacrifice your family to make face. Don't ever think that, because you're going to, and honestly, you're going to hurt the things that really matter as opposed to the things that aren't so important. So just be careful, guys. Just be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah. I mean, so that was some really great advice, and I appreciate like finally getting to talk to you and having
Yeah,
you
totally.
on. This was great. But before we hop off, I am going to leave all your information down in the description so people can find you.
Appreciate
But
it.
could you let people know one more time where they can find you if you have anything upcoming perhaps you want them to
Sure.
be on the lookout for?
Yeah, not much. Unfortunately, yeah, it's been tough lately. So
Yeah.
I did drop a video last week, a toy hunt video. So you can go check that out if you want. My live stream will be back eventually. I don't know when. Again, things have been tough with my job and stuff. So it's Yukon Phil. You can check it out on YouTube. Also have an Instagram at Phil Yukon. They got switched somehow. I don't know how that happened. And then
Oh,
also on Facebook, Yukon Phil on Facebook too. So I'm pretty active on Instagram, not quite as much on Facebook. And then I try to drop at least one video a week. It doesn't always happen, but that's kind of where we go with that. So
okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on,
thanks
and
for
I
having
will
me.
see everybody next Thursday.
See you guys.